we're so happy to be joined now by Dari Carlebach and her extremely talented son, Liav, who is also a guitar player and a chip off of his grandpa's block, here to talk about the legacy of the singing Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. I'm so honored to have you in the studio, and welcome to you, Mr. 13-year-old guitar prodigy. So, okay, first let's just start. Everybody, even for me, I grew up very secular in the U.S. My journey brought me to Israel, but even before, I had heard of your father. So growing up with somebody of so much joy and music and able to bring harmony and love and hope into people's lives, during a time, the time of, when a lot of people were awakening back in the 60s and 70s. Could you explain from your own journey, growing up as his daughter, what that was like to witness as a child?
First of all, I'm so happy to be here with you, and it's so wonderful to be with my son, my very special son. So thank you for having us.
Of course.
It's really interesting because I didn't realize that my life was so different until I was probably a teenager. When I was younger, it was just, I thought that's what life was like, just, walking on the street and having to stop 1,000 times to hug and kiss every person you saw. Thought that was normal. I grew up in Toronto and spent part of my time in Toronto, part of my time on the Moshav in Israel, and part of the time in New York in my father's shul. And it was very interesting to witness the eclectic experience of so many different kinds of people coming into my life. Really early on, I was exposed to that there were many different kinds of people, many different kinds of Judaism, and that everyone's pulling in different parts of God. And that my father represented to me the connection, the spiritual kind of opening to the world.
Wow.
And yeah.
Wow. I mean, especially given where you came from. Wait, first I want to talk to you. What's it like growing up also on Stories and to know that you have your grandfather's, talent? Do you feel him talking to you, with you, around you? You feel his energy?
With me all the time when I'm playing guitar. When I play on his guitar, it's like singing his song with my mom. It's amazing. But I'm so sad that I didn't get to meet him. It always makes me sad. Here and all the time, people stop me on the street, talking to me about my grandfather.
Wow. Oh my God, I'm starting to cry.
Every time I get a new story.
Wow. And explain the influence and why it was so important for him and his purpose to actually be in Israel. I mean, we know you're from Toronto, I'm from LA, New York. When you're living in the diaspora, we have a good life abroad, but to choose to come here, those of us that are following whatever our inner unction is taking us, I mean, what was that like and why was that so important to him and the community that he built?
It's actually really interesting. He never made Aliyah.
Wow.
But to him, Israel was the pinnacle of the center. He used to say that God always has one eye on the world and one eye in Yerushalayim. Wow. And that when you walk, you have one foot in the rest of the world and one foot always in Israel.
Explain the music, because I've done a lot of stories about this. Even when you learn Tehillim and stuff like this, it's like music is the way you talk to God, Torah is the way God talks to us. Could you explain that feeling as well, and why music has the ability to kind of elevate us? As my friend, this guy Ruben Abrahamov said, it's like it passes our cerebral cortex when you're singing. It's like it transports you beyond what our brain is trying to process logically.
We're so, as a culture and as a world, attached to language and our brain and our thoughts. But music's like the universal language of our soul. Yeah. And so when we sing, we elevate to the place where we once remember that we're all just divine creations and we're all one. And my father used music as a way to remind us that we need to come closer together. We need to remember we're brothers and sisters and we're all going to the same place. He used to say, people used to ask him, what do you feel about reform? What do you feel about this? All the different questions about Judaism and how it works in the rest of the world. And he used to say, we're all going to the same place. I'll meet you there, brother. And I feel like he used music as a way to ignite some inner fire of memory and bring us to where we're supposed to be.
Which is why you hear songs, I could hear songs still to this day. I'm like, this was 1973, and I remember being a kid in a playground, why music has the ability to transport us back as if it's in the present time, not in the past, right?
Yeah.
It's
timeless.
incredible. Incredible. So, all right, with that said, what are you going to be performing? I know you're going to be singing for us. Obviously, both of you extremely talented. The apple doesn't far from the tree. So what are you going to be singing, and why it's so important, especially now, because we're not exactly in a time of joy here in Israel or in the world. But we have to bring a light to the world from here. It's our responsibility to enlighten the rest of the world, right?
Yeah, it starts with us. We're going to sing Nachamu Ami, which is the Parsha after Tisha B'Av. It's actually his Parsha. And it was his bar mitzvah last year. Wow. But my father used to say, why does it say Nachamu, Nachamu Ami? Why does it say it twice? Because just like God is comforting us, we need to comfort God, and that it's the feeling of sometimes when you feel like everything's dark and everything's chaotic, you feel alone. But when you know that we're all in it together, that when you're in the darkness, you have to remember to be the light. And when you're alone, you have to remember that there's always the hand to hold, and that we comfort each other and bring ourselves to just more gratitude and love and joy, and that's what elevates us to the next place.
Oh my God, my ears ringing. As you're saying this, I started feeling a vibration in my ear. It's so weird. So these things happen. Wow. Okay, so now let's sing without further ado. All right, let's bring the great singing rabbi. Take it away. Thank you all for watching, and thank you, and let's hear it.
Thank you.